Hi, good afternoon, Roman. Welcome for the second day of Distribution 2.0. I know you have great guests to moderate. I just want to say good afternoon and welcome to Cindy, Spencer, and Sasha. Me and Mark, we will move ourselves from the screen and stay on the backstage. If you need my hand, just raise and give me a shoot, and I will be there. Okay? So you can take the words and carry on. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Enzo, for the introduction there. Congratulations on a successful session just there wrapping up. Today's discussion is on extreme bookings or waves of extreme bookings / cancellations, volatility could be here to stay. How should the travel sector respond, and is cancellation insurance the answer? We're living in a world where travelers quite literally don't know whether they're coming or going from one week to the next, resulting in massive waves of bookings, followed by massive waves of cancellations at the slightest notice of bad news. And as an industry, we need to work out how we can de-risk the challenges of mass cancellations and the refund element of that. I'd like to say thank you today to the panelists that we've got here. We're going to introduce in just a second. I'd like to say thank you to HyperGuest for having me on to moderate a second day in a row and putting this all together. And obviously, thank you to everybody watching at home, wherever you are, or watching on playback. Few housekeeping points. If you can pump this out on social media, share, take pictures, we'd be very grateful, driving the audience. Remember, you can ask questions, you get in the chat. Enzo sees those, he filters those. Please click them clean, positive, relevant to the debate. We'd also like you to reach out to all of the speakers. You can find them on LinkedIn, see their names on the screen. I'm sure they would love to hear from you. And just lastly, full disclosure, anyone who knows me and who knows Spencer will know that we work together. So we're our client, or wish anyone to think that I'm presenting it to be anything otherwise. Later on in the day, in the debate, we're going to do a selfie. Hope everybody's ready for that, best pictures, and we'll be promoting that on social media. So the structure today is going to be, we're going to divide, first of all, we're going to hear from each of the speakers to explain a little bit about themselves and their role in their company. And then we're going to break this topic down into 4 subject matters, which I'll put to the floor and everyone will answer. If questions come in that are relevant along the way or at the end, we'll do it. And we've got about 36, 37 minutes, so plenty of time to discuss this topic. Introducing the speakers. So first, in order that they're on the screen now, I suppose, Sasha from Battleface. Sasha, do you want to introduce yourself, your role, your company, just briefly?
Yeah, sure. I'm with Battleface. What we do, we build travel insurance internationally, and we use technology to unbundle travel insurance and put it back together. So we make it absolutely relevant to today's travelers.
Excellent. Thank you, Sasha. Looking forward to having your input. Spencer, you're the next one down there in the kind of university challenge type boxes. Spencer's from NEOM. Please tell us a bit more about NEOM, Spencer, and your role.
Yeah, so nice to be here and thank you for the invitation. Nice to be involved. Spencer, I work for a company called NEOM, which is essentially a very rapidly growing fintech, a company born out of Southeast Asia about 8 years ago, with the mission to deliver modern money movement around the world, essentially allow businesses, primarily businesses, to pay anyone, anywhere, with the minimum amount of hassle. NEOM acquired a company called Exaris during the course of last year. For many people in the travel industry, both the hotel booking, but also the OTA and even the airline space will recognize the name Exaris, a much older company, about 18 years old, and a specialist in virtual credit cards. And it's nice to be here.
Thank you, Spencer. Looking forward to your responses as well. And last but not least, Cindy from Protect Group. Tell us a bit more about yourself and your role.
Hi, Spencer. Thank you so much for inviting us to this talk. My name is Cindy. I'm the Business Development Manager for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region at Protect Group. And what Protect Group does is basically makes any normal online booking refundable. And if the guest is unable to attend the booking for any unforeseen circumstance in their lives, like COVID, then we do the refunding on behalf of the business, and the business retains the booking revenue.
Excellent. Okay, well, looking forward to your insight there. So I think a nice selection on the panel there. Obviously, we've done that deliberately, but looking at this from different perspectives, whether it be insurance, refunds, and the tech side of it all. And we're gonna get into the tech part later on as well. Taking you in the order that you are all there. So Sasha first, then Spencer, then Cindy. First question we're going to all discuss is a lot of the volatility that we've seen with cancellations and then mass bookings has been driven by COVID recently in a very extreme way, obviously, that we've never seen before in any, in the history of mankind. But obviously, there are a lot of other risks out there that can drive volatility. And it appears that volatility is kind of the new constant, whether we're talking about geopolitical, particularly over the last couple of months, and the terrible situations we've seen around the world, particularly in Ukraine, obviously, natural disasters, terrorism, environmental threats as time goes on. Hopefully not, but it could be there. Financial, economical, and so on. Is volatility the new constant? What are the threats that we're seeing and we should be preparing for? Sasha, do you want to go first there?
Yeah, sure. At least speaking on behalf of the travel insurance industry, that has been in our minds for the last several decades, right? Asian tsunami, for example, or ash volcano, or Ebola pandemic. All of these events had a huge impact on the way we travel, and of course on travel insurance, and the risk as well. And that's why within the travel insurance space, what was needed before COVID-19 and especially after COVID-19 is to have an ability to create products that are very relevant to today's environment, and also relevant to today's travelers, and also relevant to the actual destination where you're traveling to. Otherwise, what we're seeing in the marketplace, when you have a one-size-fits-all type of product, where there's no difference where you're traveling to or what are you doing while you're traveling, those products really don't work for today's environment, and especially they don't work for today's travelers. So from the insurance perspective, that certainly is now in the forefront for everybody within the insurance industries, to make sure that you have the right products at the right price, and consumers are extremely aware of what they're looking for and what they need.
Okay, some interesting insight there. Spencer, do you want to come up next on that question? What's your view here? Do you think that this, the volatility is the new constant, and what are the things that we need to be responding to?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to spend the majority of my life in and around travel. My father worked for British Airways, and I was born in Hamburg when he was a station manager for the precursor to BA, a company called BEA. And so I've lived through the two Gulf Wars, avian flu. In fact, I was in Israel and Turkey when we had the second Gulf War, and we evacuated, and aircraft are avoiding the area. So travel's always been volatile. It is, by its nature, a global business. And if something happens in one part of the world, the major operators, whether it's the bookers, the GDSs, the airlines, and then finally the consumer, probably the most important in that chain, are affected in some way or form. But I think you alluded to it earlier on, Roman, in your opening comments. What's startling is the scale, the wave. I think you used the name wave in the title, and that's really fascinating about what's happened to our industry right now. It's happening all over the world very quickly. So you only have to look at the Omicron variant to see how quickly borders were being closed, whether that was effective or ineffective in the instance. But we're having to adapt to that. It's not a small pocket of the globe that is looking like it's going to be troublesome for a period of time, and then we can react and plan to it. It's the announcement of a new variant and then borders shutting within 24, 48, 72 hours. And that's incredibly challenging for all members of the value chain. I can only speak for our part. where we essentially see a tidal wave of money changing direction very, very quickly. And essentially, you better be ready for that, because that change, that tsunami of change in direction of funds and flow of funds can upend your business, can certainly upset your customers, and can destroy the relationships with your business partners. So the days of being able to rely on 3-day settlement periods, on manual processes, are long gone in this area or era, should I say, of volatility.
Sort of summing up, so you said there's always been volatility, but now it's more extreme. It's a kind of before and after kind of thing.
Beautifully put, but yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Spencer. Some interesting insights there. And I know that you have a view on a lot of different businesses there that you're working with, and so you're speaking with authority there. Cindy, so what's your view? Is it before and after? What kind of how epic a change are we in?
I mean, it obviously existed pre-COVID. There's always environmental issues. There's, geopolitical issues. But at the moment, when COVID happened, I think the majority of people weren't expecting a global pandemic. And now, 2 years down the line, I think it's become the new normal. I think we were waiting for things to go back to the old normal, but we realized that that might not happen. So if anything, we're just kind of adapting to the new situation. And we do find that guests are very hesitant to commit to a booking in the travel industry at the moment, just because of this volatility and the somewhat post-traumatic stress that we have, that anything could happen next week. So it is a more volatile environment. And I think if anything, we're just learning to live with it. And that's where new companies are coming in and kind of making it possible for the traveler.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you there, Cindy. So some good insights as well. And I'm sure that you're seeing it from a lot of perspectives as well. If you're speaking with authority too. Moving on to the next question then we've got on the list, or sort of, to breaking down this debate. We see clouds there. I think would be a way of just sort of summarising what you're saying. There are clouds on the horizon, but clouds can often have a silver lining. Could for the travel industry, could cancellation insurance be part of that silver lining, or are there other products that we need to use to respond to? How do we respond? How do we monetize this? Or at the very least, keep going. Sasha, do you want to go first there? What do you see? What opportunities do you see?
Yeah, sure. I think cancellation insurance is always there as part of the chain, but relying on cancellation insurance at 100% is also not sustainable. Because it does take multiple parties to actually come to the table. So, for instance, if everyone in the world relies on travel insurance to be the primary focus for cancellation, then we'll have a problem within the industry. I think travel suppliers and travel providers really need to continue to have flexible cancellation and change policies as well, because that's what we've seen in the last 2 years, that all of a sudden airlines or online travel agencies and hotels became somewhat flexible, and that's what really gives the confidence back to the consumer as well, and that what also offsets the 100% of the risk just being taken by the cancellation insurance. Because cancellation insurance will not be able to sustain that going forward, because we'll continue to see disruptions, new variants, new cancellations, not enough staff, or this is going to be ongoing, and different pandemics, different disasters, and relying on the insurance at 100% is not realistic. And the third element to this is the consumer as well. For the last 2 years, customers became very well aware of what's happening around the world. We're becoming to be more acceptable of possible changes and interruptions, and have less expectations, so to speak, right, from 3 years ago to now. So I think it takes three parties, the actual insurance companies, travel providers, and customers to come all together in this.
Interesting. So a lot of elements. There's no one sort of killer thing. You're saying it's got.
Yeah.
We've all got to do this.
Yeah, not in cancellation insurance at 100% is not realistic, but certainly a big part of it.
Okay, so interesting insight there from an insurer. So it's nice to hear you saying that there's there's a wider solution. It's not just one thing. Spencer, what's your view on this? Where are the opportunities? Is cancellation insurance the answer? Should we be selling some other kind of product? What do we need to do to respond to this challenge?
Yeah, I think a couple of things to talk about. Let's bifurcate it. Let's talk about after the event, similar to cancellation insurance. I know you make the decision prior to the trip, and I pick up on Cindy's point that essentially our attitude to travel is changing dramatically. I certainly feel a sense of dread occasionally when booking now, because if it's something you're looking forward to, the sense of anxiety rises pre-trip, whereas that used to be a sense of excitement and looking forward to it. But put that to one side. I think there's two areas. One is vouchers, and particularly speaking about airlines here, the knee-jerk reaction to attempting to refund individuals in the era of the pandemic was to rely on vouchers for obvious commercial reasons to try and hold on to cash, and fully understood. However, the industry wasn't ready for it and the consumer wasn't ready for it. Websites weren't ready to handle it. You had to revert to the call center. Call centers were overloaded. Consumers didn't know the rules and terms of the vouchers and were running a stock of them that were expiring. The whole thing's a mess, and it also became a balance sheet item for certain big players. That has to be fixed somehow. The key players in the airline world need to fix and find an alternative that's better than vouchers, or certainly better run than the current voucher system, because that is driving customers away in droves. And secondly, I'd like to see an evolution in terms of flexibility. So historically, airlines price their tickets in two ways. One, in terms of the class of cabin, so you pay more obviously for the premium cabins than you do for economy cabin, with all of the product features therein. But the second one is to do with flexibility. You can buy a fully flexible fare at the highest price, or you can buy a inflexible fare that you can't refund, etc., etc. That's markedly different to the way that hotels and venues price. So if you were to book a wedding, you would be asked to pay a deposit a certain period out, then a further payment, maybe 50%, maybe 75%, and the final amount closer in. I can see a world where we start moving towards that sort of pricing. We want consumers to be planning 12 months ahead to go to Disneyland with their family. I've just been to Disneyland. I'm hoping I don't go back in within 12 months. But we want people to be booking out. I mean, the industry needs that. However, people don't want to commit that money with the view that they'll get it back as a voucher, right? They don't want to give up that flexibility. So I'd like to see the industry commercially innovate, but also technically innovate, so that we can see more flexibility around the payment and the level of commitment the consumer is making in this high level of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Okay, so some interesting insights there. So the fractional payment thing one's an interesting one. I know that in some parts of Latin America, I think Brazil, fractional payments are quite popular. People literally pay for flights in installments, but not in other markets. The voucher one's interesting as well. I certainly had an interesting policy from an airline last year who cancelled on me and promised me a voucher. And then when I went to redeem the voucher, they just denied it ever existed. I thought that was a fantastic policy. But there you go. It just literally said, no, we never said that.
Yeah. From the insurance perspective, we're starting to see customers asking for cancellation insurance up to 2 years in advance, because historically it's been up to 12 months, and now we're seeing the demand up to 24 months as well. So it certainly is a trend within the travel industry.
Wow, 2 years in advance. That really is a long way out. I can't think what I'm going to be doing 2 years from now. But if there's a demand, we should be giving it to people. And presumably, a business like yours, you're selling B2B as well, so there's an opportunity for travel sellers to make a commission, no? And everybody's in the marketplace now.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's actually coming from travel suppliers as well, because they have customers that would like to book so far in advance, and they're looking for a policy that would be able to offer that protection as well. So yeah, it's still kind of like it's a three-way approach, right? A customer, a provider, and an insurance company of trying to come up with the right products.
Okay, no, you make an interesting point there. I think it's for the whole travel distribution chain. It's not just for the person making the final sale or whatever. Cindy, so what's your take on this? Is there a silver lining to this cloud? Obviously, you provide cancellation insurance of a sort, so I'm sure you would see that as one of the answers. But what do you think more generally?
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely is a way to mitigate the situation that we're in at the moment. And just to add to what you were speaking about before, we do make bookings refundable 24 months in advance. But we do find, obviously, that the last 2 days, the last 48 hours is when the majority of our cancellations happen, because there's not much that can happen a year before that will really prohibit you from being able to attend a hotel booking, for example. So we do have extensive terms and conditions, such as refunding 24 months in advance. We are not actually an insurance. We're a refund product. We're a tech solution. So we make online bookings refundable. And if the guest couldn't attend for genuine reasons, like a flu or, life got in the way for whatever reason, then we would do the refunding. And we definitely find that the market is responding very well at the moment. Pre-COVID, we were having about 18% conversion. At the moment, post-COVID, we're having about 30 to 40%. So that's 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 people are picking the refundable option. So it might not be the complete end-all, be-all solution. I think it will be a number of things working together to kind of come out of the situation and work with the new norm. But it definitely is encouraging advanced bookings, because guests know that if they book a year in advance, if they couldn't attend for whatever reason a year down the line, then they would get their money back. So we're finding businesses are actually using this as a marketing tool to be able to bring the money into the business and hopefully keep it there.
So people see your product from the consumer perspective at the final stage when they go to make the booking, click here. That's when they see they can get the refund, the policy that you're offering. Yeah, is that right?
Exactly. So when they're booking a non-refundable, they get to the point of checkout. We just present a tick box option. Would you like to opt in to a refundable booking? It's cost neutral to the business, so we don't have fees or premiums or any negotiations or anything like that. We just charge the guest a little bit more if they want to make the booking refundable. So there's no obligations. And again, if they couldn't attend, then we do all of the refunding and we handle the operations as well. So instead of you having the headache and having a team of people responding to refunds, we take that work away from you, and we also finance the refunds.
Okay, so that's interesting, because for businesses out there that are worried about travel sellers or suppliers who are worried about the de-risking, I suppose one of the ways to de-risk is to bring in somebody like yourself, because then that's going to take the pressure off of them on the phones and so on when something happens. Okay, then, thank you. Moving on to the third question, or third sort of sub part of the debate, and this is where I think it's going to be very interesting for lots of people watching at home, in the office, wherever you are. Talk about the tech side of things, right? So what role is technology playing in all of this, given that the waves that we've seen now are just unprecedented, huge volumes, and certainly in a world 20 years ago, 30 years ago, no one would have been able to cope with those, with just call centers and so on. So tech is playing a role, but what role is it playing and should be playing going forward? So, automating processes, speeding up refunds, responding to customer inquiries, stopping frauds, and all the different tech that we could see in there, bots, AI, whatever it might be. Sasha, do you want to go first? What are you seeing? What are you doing in your business, obviously, and what are you seeing more widely in the industry?
I guess all of the above, of course, everything you just listed, and then what Spencer was talking about in the beginning as well. There's the immediacy of refunds and payments back. There's no more excuses in terms of waiting for a week or two, or a month or 3 for decision making, and that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we've seen in the insurance industry probably in the insurance industry, but at least in the travel insurance industry, is how do you start making those changes? For example, when during COVID-19, a lot of consumers were faced with immediate cancellations from the airlines and they couldn't travel, but airlines were giving full refunds back to customers and to passengers. But travel insurance has this clause: if you don't cancel within 14 days after buying your travel insurance, you don't get your money back. So the travel insurance industry quickly had to scrap that and change it and adapt to the current, right? So if consumers are not able to travel and they're not using the travel insurance, they should be getting 100% refund back. So those are the kind of things that we've seen during COVID-19, and going forward, of course, on the claims handling process, certainly this is where the automation is key. The claim form should not be in existence, so to speak. It should be all immediate. If there's any delays or a misconnecting flight, there's ways to track someone's flights and then send the money directly to them based on that delay. So those are the things that we'll see in the travel insurance industry continue to evolve and continue to develop, especially once it comes to trip interruptions, travel delays, immediate changes, and also your ability to buy the policy while you're traveling, because historically, you could only purchase travel insurance before you left your home. COVID-19 had showed us that now you could be stuck in another country and you're not able to return back home. So what happens from the protection perspective while you're there? Because travel insurance is not only for trip cancellation, it's also for medical emergencies, medical evacuation, and everything while you're traveling. So those are the things that we'll see, and that's only solvable with technology.
I just understand right now, are there any insurance providers, yourselves, whoever, who, you know, if my flight is cancelled, the money's automatically coming back, I don't need to make an application, they're tracking it, but you think that's a prediction?
Yeah, it's already happening. We're seeing that in the marketplace, and some have even taken it a bit further, right? So if your flight is delayed for more than 3 hours, you get the money while you're waiting at the airport. Those are the very interesting new things that are taking place within the travel insurance industry, and that's all as a result of the last 2 to 3 years.
That's very interesting. Okay, well, I'm excited by that. I hope certainly, I'm sure, like everyone, you know, had experiences with these things that have been time consuming. Spencer, tell us a bit more. What role do you think? Well, what role is tech playing in your business right now to cope with this? And what are you seeing in the wider industry? What do you recommend people do?
Okay, dangerous area because I'm not an IT person, so don't probe too much, Roman, here, because it's only a thin veneer of knowledge.
Don't worry, there's only about 500 people watching.
So just picking up on what's been said earlier and using the case, the example of innovators in terms of Cindy and Sasha's company. So one's innovating in insurance and unbundling insurance and making it clever little product offerings there, and the others specializing in making the refund process. And what I would say is that no one company, no one enterprise is going to be able to move as fast and as far as they necessarily want on their own. It's collaboration in the industry. And for me, my understanding, limited understanding, is that APIs is the key to that. And for those of you who know less than I do, which is probably not very many of you, APIs is essentially taking what you do, breaking it down into many components and publishing it and making it available for others to innovate on technically. So this is machines talking to machines, finding standard services and making them available for others to build upon. So we're a financial services provider, but there's no reason in the world why we can't collaborate through standard API interfaces with other innovators like Sasha and Cindy and their businesses to provide a proposition that brings the best of both worlds. And I think that's what technology and this sort of easy plug and play, very easy to say, I know, and there's usually detail underneath that makes it more challenging, but it's there. right? And it's robust, it's built, and it's used millions of times a day by companies all over the world. And that's what I think is exciting, so that you bring the collective to build something that really starts to solve the problem at scale.
Okay, yeah, I think scale is definitely a good word here, given certainly the challenges we've seen in the last few years, and yeah, I like the machine to machine talking bit there. I like that as well. I think we're definitely going to need a lot more of that to resolve the kind of challenges we're facing. Cindy, what's your take on this? How are you using technology in your business to speed up, introduce efficiencies, manage the challenges?
Mm-hmm. So obviously we're a tech solution, so technology is kind of a prominent and integral part of our product that we provide. We use AI, we use image detection, we use language translations, we even use text analytics, just so that we can streamline the refunds process. And just to give you an example, we're always upgrading these technologies. And last year, our refund time was on average 48 hours. And this year, 2022 year to date, April end, our average refund time actually became 7 hours. And we're constantly upgrading the technology. We have obviously a big technology team and a big customer experience team that works to kind of streamline these refunds so that we can do them very quickly. And it's an integral part of our company and of our solution. And I don't think we would be able to have kind of the way that we refund if we didn't use the technology that we used. And not to brag, we also have a Trustpilot of 4.8, and that's because of the speed with which we're able to refund and the technologies that we use. That's kind of the essential part of our business. It's the core of what we do. So I would say that's the main solution for us is using that kind of technology.
Well, it sounds like there's certainly no going back. Trustpilot is absolutely unforgiving as a website, so anyone who's got a score above 1 is very good in my my experience, because people only go on there to put negative reviews. So I think you must be doing something right. Okay then, so moving on to the next and last section, just sort of conscious of time, we've only got about another sort of 5 or 6 minutes or so before we start to run out of time. So we could give sort of concise answers. One single recommendation would you have for travel businesses for how to respond to this? Obviously, I know you thought about this beforehand, you've seen the questions in advance. So, but if you could just give us a sort of short answer to what recommendation you might have for travel businesses on how to overcome the kind of bookings volatility, bookings, cancellations, refunds, and all the rest of it. Sasha, what do you advise people do?
From our perspective is relevancy, and that's one key mission that we have at Battleface, is making sure that products are relevant to today's travelers, right? And it's a very broad term because the world is changing. Things will continue to develop products that are relevant to you as a consumer, and using tech to do that, and also continue to custom build products for your partners and their customers, at least from the travel insurance perspective.
Relevancy, that's a good word. I like that. Spencer, what's your one sort of take recommendation if you had to lay it down?
Well, this is very parochial and very self-orientated, but I would say credit cards. My friends in the schemes, Visa and MasterCard, will be delighted to hear it. But if you're building a business, if you're a consumer, if you're playing in a global industry such as travel, with all the volatility we spoke about, the credit card networks were built to serve this business. In fact, they grew out of travel originally. They are global. They have trust built in. They're instant. You probably could, but they're as close to instant as you can get. And critically, and we've seen them stress tested over the last 2-3 years, and I've seen it up close and personal, and it's been terrifying at times, they're two-way highways. So they allow for the money to flow towards the merchant, the provider of the service, with absolute reliability and trust, and a mechanism called the chargeback mechanism if things go wrong. But they also allow for the money to flow back just as smoothly back to the consumer if things change for whatever reason. And that global interconnection, so that people who don't know each other can do commerce around the world, 24 hours a day, in every currency available, is a system I wouldn't try and reinvent. And so my advice, if you're going to play in this space, become fluent in the language of credit cards.
Okay, I'm sure some good advice, and sounds like what you're saying is if it didn't exist, we'd be inventing it again right away. So that's obviously sometimes a good sign. There's lots of things out there that we rely on that maybe we wouldn't create from scratch if we were starting from zero again. And last but not least, Cindy, what's your take? What one thing do you recommend to travel businesses to implement to try and mitigate against this terrible risk?
I think there's several. I would say definitely the one that Sasha mentioned, which is relevance, to have something that's relevant to the market, because it is changing. The world is always changing. So to have something relevant that's relevant to this moment is definitely a part of it. Another one would be quick response, because of the volatility of the market and things changing all the time. I think quick response and being able to incorporate the differences, for example, COVID happening, and including that in our terms and conditions very quickly. I would say that the quick response is the main one that I would suggest.
Okay, then, thank you. I think those are good suggestions as well. So on that, that's the final. Those are the final talking points that we had to go through today. We've got 1 or 2 minutes left. We started a little bit late, but are there any further points that any of you panelists might want to make or raise, or questions that have come up as a result of this?
I just, for those who think this is over, I would suggest that it's not, and coming into the autumn, we will see another wave of volatility. And so for those who arrive late to the party in the travel industry and think this was a problem that's been solved, it hasn't. And for those who wish that we've been through it, I don't think we are. And so we are eyeing the winter period with some suspicion that we'll see some volatility. I mean, Cindy mentioned it, there's later booking, but we're also going to see some cancellations, refunds, chargebacks, and God forbid, we might see some operators that fall into financial instability. So all of that is ahead of us as we come into the Northern Hemisphere's winter period. So it's.
You think that's specifically COVID, the driver of volatility there, or maybe some other factors?
Primarily, it's COVID. Of course, unfortunately, we have the conflict in Ukraine and where that could go, but not really focusing my comments on that. It's more to do with another variant, the winter season, and the impact that will have. I think I may have mentioned this in the past. I think it is a ratchet recovery, and by that I mean, as in with a handbrake, every time you pull it up, you can't put it down. The same thing. So I think we are learning as a global industry. Closing borders doesn't work instantaneously. There are certain ways of trying to defeat this problem that have been proven not to be effective. So I think we are learning those things, but still, we will face the same instability come the winter. And we should all be prepared with all of our businesses in the sort of topics we discussed.
Okay, then, so sort of crossing your fingers approach, maybe that moment is gone. Cindy or Sasha, any last thoughts before we wrap up there?
Cindy, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to echo what was already said, basically that the hospitality and travel industry is probably the hardest hit by COVID, and they've gone through a lot of flexible terms and conditions just to be able to sustain their business. So I think this is going to be a recovery period, kind of an adaptation period, and certainly the products that we're all providing will help these businesses do that.
Okay, some good thoughts. Sasha, any last thoughts there, or?
From my perspective, I think just basically develop a relationship with your customer directly and take control of the customer journey from start to finish, so you can continue to stay on top of what actually customers are looking for. And that would be my strongest advice for going forward to eliminate any of the potential risks.
Okay, well, we just had some nice feedback there from somebody called Christine Mayer. She said super insights, interesting not only for demand players but also for hoteliers. So I think that's a thumbs up. Okay, well, I'd like to say thank you very much to all three of you, Cindy, Spencer, and Sasha, for your time and your insights. Very valuable there. I think there's a lot of food for thought, and that people can hopefully go away resting easy, knowing that there are some simple but effective and important steps that they can take to de-risk, maybe even cross-sell or monetize the opportunity a little bit. And just as importantly, to provide value to everyone else in the chain, which is, I suppose, ultimately what it's all about. Once again, I'd encourage everyone at home to share on social media. Oh, I didn't take a picture. We're going to do it. If you don't mind, we're going to do a selfie. Everybody, put your best face on. Here we go. That's it. That'll be one in the Townsend family annals. Please, everybody at home, share on social media. Remember, we've got some sessions tomorrow, and Enzo and Mark will explain a little bit more about that. And please, I encourage you all to look up Sasha, Cindy, and Spencer's businesses on their LinkedIn page. Send them a message. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you, and to explain a little bit more about how they can help remove the bookings volatility headache from your life and allow you to get back to doing what you all do best, which is selling and buying travel, providing it, everything, all the other things around it, and not managing the risk aspect, because that's not what you set out to do. Thanks, guys, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Cindy. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so guys, it's the end of the day. It's the end of the second day. So before we end up, let me quickly remind the audience still there that tomorrow we still have the last episode. The theme of the day is going to be booking. We did dreaming, then planning today. Tomorrow is going to be booking. And that's the topic of the 3 different sessions. How is pricing and content quality impacting on conversion ratio? Bed banks versus direct contracting, marketplace model, and payments, how the travel industry is handling one of the online customer merchant concern. So make sure you're tuning in tomorrow, and for sure there will be still more to share and keep the audience informed about the latest trends, right? Last word for you, Roman.
Well, thanks everyone. Congratulations on another successful day. Lots of great food for thought there. Anyone tuning in tomorrow, make sure you're there for the first session. That's going to be moderated by me. And be very grateful if everyone could please push, pump, share, comment, like on social media. Drives more engagement and ups the value of all of this for everyone, because we want questions, we want insight, we want people contacting each other off the back of it. It's what it's all about.
Great. Mark, last word from you.
No, just looking forward to tomorrow's session. I mean, I think today we have had a really interesting forum, starting from technology and then moving to how the industry has been adapting to the COVID and post-COVID situation. Okay, and I think it's been really interesting. So see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, guys. Thank you, and have a nice evening. Ciao, Roman. Ciao, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.